How's it going, everyone? Welcome again, Elvira Gonzalez. You know, um, today this is the first video of this TypeScript Pro Essential series, particularly the course taught by this software developers. I don't know his name right now, but what I do know is that this marked the first step in understanding and taking notes and be able to describe and apply and most of the time read this code base reading in TypeScript. Why TypeScript? Because in the web development, this is part of the natural step on the industry. So it all starts with building small applications using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, right? And providing some small animations here and there, and then scaling now to create applications that provide now this different layout modes, and also that we need to not only render those apps on the mobile, on the desktop, but also on other type of viewports, whether it is a tablet, mobile, and even edge large screens. Okay, so as the industry matures, it also come up with this particularly technologies here. So one of them is TypeScript, which guarantee that the more your application scale, the more it's easy for us to do a refactor or to prevent some error that might happen at runtime. And you don't want that, right? And they might be very hard to debug. Okay, so this is the value proposition of TypeScript, because JavaScript it is dynamic nature that is developing. It is good for rapid prototyping, but as your applications grows and scale and you're starting to now put it more research, hire new people, developing a strategy to what are the products and features that you want to now add to your own products. And if you need to pivot from one product to another, there's another one, right? So to make things much more predictable for the developer perspective, in terms of reading the intentions of somebody else at X point in time, usually back in time, you don't do that in the future, back in time, and now X month or a couple of years later, you can read that code, understand what was the intention back then, and try to enhance or fix that kind of stuff. So this is the reason why we have now this TypeScript language, which is actually developed by Microsoft as an internal tool for their team to actually now is find a way to make these things predictable, aka the data flow, right? So developers can understand what is the shape of the data at some specific point in our programs. So you might wonder, if you know all of this, why you actually take notes, or why you are why are you going to do this? Okay, and the thing here is that I only know is the surface, and again, as the industry mature, I need to dive deep into this more in-depth technical aspect and the practice that has been using in today's, or at least in 2025. So with the help of, in this case, this estimated sir, I can take notes of what is the current state of the TypeScript and in on the development, so I can be now on the same page if I need to provide this service to another one, right? So whether it's another customers or clients, big or small, or SMA, small medium business, or even large companies, right? So this is what it is. This is the reason why I'm doing this. All right, so let's get into this. Okay. I already created a doc here, Typescript Essentials. So I don't know what is the instructor name. I'm assuming he will tell me that in on today's video, right? This is part of my channel where I'm uploading all of this series of videos for me from the future, right? And here we are. So kickstart your Typescript setup here. And yeah, let's get into this. There are several, as you can see, there are several modules. We're gonna call this as it is. And let me actually write it down here. Kickstart your Typescript setup. Okay, kickstart your Typescript setup, Typescript in the build process, essential types, annotation, and so on and so forth. Let's get into this. Yep. So here the goal is to understand the fundamentals of Typescript, about how do we get here. All right, so understand the fundamentals of Typescript, about how do we get here in the industry. Okay, so understand the fundamental of Typescript, about how we get here as an industry. How we get here as an industry. All right, that's pretty much it. And well, the objective is to articulate Typescript. All right, articulate or describe the storytelling about Typescript. All right. Proficient when it comes to understand Typescript code, right? Okay, so proficient when it comes to understand Typescript code and provide Typescript services to clients in a succinct way to help their business grow, right? Okay, table of content. Here we are. This is Typescript. Kickstart your Typescript setup. Say, hey, kickstart your Typescript setup, right? This is one. Actually, I do want to have a little bit more space here. Please give it to me. All right. Yeah, much better. Okay. In fact, I do need this. I do need this space here, my friends. It must be like this. Alright. Got it. Right. Take it. You got it. All right. That's right. Kickstart your Typescript setup. Yeah, that's one. The first one. The second is Typescript in the build process. So Typescript in the build process, right? What's the next one? Essential types and notation. So essential types and notations. All right. Integrated development environment superpowers. Integrated development power. Development environment environment superpower, right? I do think it's using exactly on the build process to make some distinction. Essential type. Oh, it's quite. Why is it so slow? Okay. That's interesting. Environment superpower. Integrating developing environment superpower. Unions and narrowing. Union and narrowing. Next one, object mutability. So object mutability. Typescript classes. Typescript classes. Typescript only feature. Okay. Typescript only features, right? You get this. Deriving type from values. Now we're talking. The deriving types from values. Deriving type from values. You get this. This must be here. Deriving type from values. Right? I don't know why it's taking this additional like additional space here. Anyway. Annotation and assertions. Annotations and assertions. Okay. The weird part of Typescript. The weird parts of Typescript. Model script and declaration files. Model script and declaration files. I do think, to me, it's much more easy to go with hidden caps or not. Is more ergonomic. Model script and declaration files. Types you don't control. Types you don't control, right? Configuring Typescript. So configuring Typescript, right? Designing your types. Okay, configuring Typescript. Designing your types. All right, that's good. And the util folders. The util folder. All right, that's a lot. And this is just the essential. All right. Okay. Let's get into this. TypeScript relationship with JavaScript. Kickstart your TypeScript setup, and this is it. I don't need to actually provide all of this with that. Yeah, because this is just only going to add unnecessary type to that. Yeah, it's going to add unnecessary links on the sidebar. I don't need that. And TypeScript relationship with JavaScript. So here we are. One is, well, section one is a kickstart your TypeScript setup. Let's get into this. Right. Here we are. So we got his TypeScript relationship with JavaScript. And let's get into it.
Before we talk about TypeScript, we really need to talk about JavaScript. Because without JavaScript, then TypeScript would not exist.
Exactly.
TypeScript is just a set of syntaxes on top of JavaScript that help you build stronger, more performant, more robust applications. And so TypeScript really is just a couple of extra little tweaks on top of JavaScript. And in order to run TypeScript code, most of the time you're going to need to compile it down to JavaScript. In other words, strip out all of that sugar, turn it back into JavaScript, and then you can run your code. So you might be thinking, why would I bother writing in TypeScript when I could just write in JavaScript? Because that's the stuff that's actually going to get run. Well, when TypeScript was invented, it was invented because the tooling for JavaScript was kind of crap. This is, at time of recording, about 10, 11 years ago. And back then, you had IDEs that sort of worked with JavaScript, but you didn't have things that you had in other typed languages, like autocomplete and like checking that you're actually passing the right thing to the right function at the right time. That meant that as your applications got bigger and bigger and bigger, then actually JavaScript was really, really hard to work with. And if you had to do any like refactors, let's say you had to change the way a function was called throughout your application, you would have to manually go through and check every individual piece of code or everywhere that function was called. And so people actually started like writing their code in C#, amazingly, and trying to turn it into JavaScript. And so C#, this thing called script sharp, which I'll link to below, this was actually one of the first prototypes of something like TypeScript, where you could write your code in a strongly typed language that had autocomplete and type checking, all this sort of stuff, and actually transpile it down into JavaScript that would run in the browser. The team at Microsoft were actually asked to like productize this and say, maybe we could turn this into something. And then someone at Microsoft had the great idea of saying, why don't we just make our own little language, which is closer to JavaScript in origin, but can still let you just transpile it down into JavaScript. And so TypeScript was born. And 10, 11 years later, it's still being run by the same small team at Microsoft. Writing JavaScript now, 11 years after TypeScript was invented, feels like you're going back in time about 11 years. Your tools immediately just get a lot worse. You lose autocomplete, you lose a sense of security when you're coding, and it makes refactoring bloody impossible in JavaScript apps. With TypeScript, you can take your entire project of code, whether that's 1,000,000 lines long, you can check it with a TypeScript compiler, with a TypeScript CLI, and it will tell you whether you have any errors in your code. Those errors might be you've passed the wrong thing to a function, you're trying to access a property that doesn't exist, or the function you're calling might be undefined in this position. I've written applications with JavaScript and with TypeScript, and I've actually been at the heart of some companies like driving their way towards TypeScript because I was so sick of working in JavaScript. When I moved to TypeScript, I felt my velocity improve because my tooling was just so much more powerful. Often with JavaScript, I would have to try out some piece of code there and then go and check it in my browser to see if it was actually working. Then I'd find some stupid typo that I had written, have to go back to the JavaScript, modify it, go back. With TypeScript, I could see my stupid typo right in the editor set, and the editor would actually tell me, and I'd be less likely to even make it because I'd mostly be just working with autocomplete. But when you think about TypeScript versus JavaScript, you should be thinking about the power of your tooling. Do you want your tools to be as powerful as possible? And yes, this means that you will need to compile your TypeScript code down to JavaScript. So you will need some kind of bundling step. But if you're working in web applications, if you're working even in Node as well, you will need some kind of bundling step anyway these days. So if you're bundling anyway, why not use TypeScript as well? The vast majority of web developers or developers that I've met and work with and spoken to at conferences, they have gone to TypeScript and are never looking back. And for me, working in JavaScript feels like working in the dark ages. But with TypeScript, I feel like I'm working in a modern, powerful IDE.
Okay. So the entire script is based on selling the idea of the fear of a tool that if you're not quite familiar of how that things works, you now suddenly might say, hey, what he say is quite compelling in terms of all the things that I barely know. I don't know my tool very well. But the things that he mentioned is there are some problems that you might have expected or experienced, and that's great. All right, as a way to actually now in this calmer, oh my god, in this calmer manner to tell you TypeScript, right? So it lowered the tone. It is doing that in this very eloquent and elegant way possible. And again, I know that this is a product that he launched that. There's nothing wrong with that. But what I do see is that it is using now fear as a way to now show you and teach you this. It might work for some folks, but if you truly want to once and for all solve your problems, it is not on the solution, it is understanding where it comes from. And a lot of the time is the nature have in a very counterintuitive way for us is hidden the solution, dive deep into the problem. AKA, so in order to understand now TypeScript, we need to understand is JavaScript and how now JavaScript applications work. So again, this is a course for those who at least have 6 years of professional work in JavaScript. They're going to see the benefit of why, for example, large corporations with thousands or even hundreds of thousands of developers, they see themselves in the need to have now a language that helps them now to identify these specific problems that you have in dynamic language, aka in a scripted language, in language that now you're going to evaluate one after another statement, right? So because JavaScript doesn't behave right now in that sense, not as a true scripted interpreted language. Right now in 2025, it actually behaves more like a compiler when it comes to analyze code, not to generate it, right? So because based on the observable reality on JavaScript, hey, this actually now throws syntax errors or early errors, and now it has a specific behaviors called hosting that happen is before the code is evaluated, aka before the language actually supposed to work the way it does or it needs to. Now I do think this is quite relevant, quite interesting, because as he mentioned, Microsoft and all of these top tech company actually they having those problems, and according to him, According to him, so shark, so he mentioned here that is, um, oh, okay, script shark. What the French stuff is this? Script shark. Um, mm-hmm. What the hell? But I think this is an unofficial language. What about this? Script shard does not refer to recognize any writing program. So that's interesting. Script shard, GitHub. Um, Script shard is a C# to JavaScript compilers. Can you look at this? Can you help me find this? Where it is? Where it lives? Oh, now we're talking. Script shard. Only held 12 years ago. Okay. Mm-hmm. By who? Nikhil Kothari, engineering lead in Google, working on machine learning and data analytics service for Google Cloud Platform. Interesting. Oh, it lives in Seattle. Welcome to my minimalist tech blog. Hugo, Extra, GitHub Pages, GitHub Actions. Powered by Extra. Okay. Motor, battery include Hugo theme for creating beautiful dogs, blog and a static website. Okay. Okay. But okay. This all of these tools, I go into the basics, man. I'll go with the basics. But that's interesting. That's interesting. So he, right? So Script Sharp project, holy hell, 12 years ago. Again, this is the last updated. Okay, Script Sharp. Master the art of JavaScript scripting. Start your scripting journey. Comprehensive learning, practical techniques, yada. Common scripting challenge, breakthrough, Script Sharp. Okay, and this is still relevant. Okay. Start your scripting journey. Nothing was found. I do think they just holding the domain here. Yeah, I think this is. I think they're just holding the domain here. It's using yeah, they're just holding the domain. Alright, okay. Makes sense. But is this Script Sharp is a development tool that generates JavaScript by compiling C# source code. It is especially interesting for scripting in large scenarios that is a common in the current generation of HTML5, Node.js, and script-based web applications. The driven principle behind Script Sharp is that JavaScript is the assembly language of the web. The idea isn't to dislike JavaScript, but rather appreciate your dislike. It does no. So I know that it's cold to hate stuff. Again, I am nobody to tell you what to do with your like or dislike. But dislike or like is just for the insincere. It's irrelevant. In the great scheme of stuff, is irrelevant, bro. Anyway, JavaScript, but rather appreciate for its flexibility and ubiquity while bringing the productivity and familiarity of C#. When building large code bases, large team or project over longer period, applications where stronger tools, more maintainable code base are of utmost importance. This is the reason why Typescript is the natural step in the evolution of the web industry and the JavaScript ecosystem. So you might have heard of this described as application scale. Especially script sharp lets you leverage the experience of C sharp. That makes a lot of sense. IntelliSense, no pun intended, build time error checking, and natural language syntax for OOP construct. So the Power Visual Studio IDE and standard.NET tool ecosystems such as MS Build, refactoring, unit testing, static analysis, and code visualization and FSCOP script this right script 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 sharp, right, or script hash script sharp brings all of this without abstracting the runtime environment. You're still authoring plain old JavaScript and incorporating the best practice and idioms of JavaScript, just with a different set of tools. You can even use script sharp to work against other existing frameworks and APIs such as jQuery and jQuery plugins, and knockout and can be extended to work against other scripted language. Script sharp requires net.4 and Visual Studio 2012, and you can also use one of the free Express tooling sets such as Visual Studio and Visual Studio Express for Windows Desktop. The script project page, well, is this one. Latest release build, issues, and you get. And this build on the excellent mono.cecil project, thanks to GB Avon. Thanks to all contributors who have contributed to script sharp over time. Your contributors are welcome. There you go. But this is what it is. Okay. Okay. So to understand why Typescript, we need to understand what is JavaScript. So it is a scripting language to build web apps. All right. It is scripting, so aka dynamic nature, like yeah, do it is a scripting aka dynamic nature. Due to it is a scripting aka dynamic nature, okay, as it is. Do it is a scripting aka dynamic nature, so code is evaluated one line after the another. Okay, so this might be good, one line after another. So this is great for rapid prototyping, okay, which is kind of the things that on the AI era is doing. So right, you have all of this LLM for rapid prototype. So similar to LLMs in 2025, where you can develop rapid prototypes apps. But when it comes to develop large, or collaborate on, when it comes to developing or collaborating, okay, but when it comes to developing or creating. Okay, whatever. So when it comes to creating or collaborating on large code bases with several teams now scatter across the globe, okay, um, it is very hard to know this couple things. What is the shape of the data? When this data, when exactly, when this function call, or when I call a function, will it work? Will it work properly? All right. Again, the questions are the things that are interesting here. So, what is the shape of the data that this function is receiving or returning, right? When I call a function, will it work properly at runtime? Okay. How can I refactor a part of my program without breaking the whole how can I refactor part of my program without breaking it? Okay, these three questions, right, actually is the core of the Typescript, right? So Microsoft, so the Microsoft team, so Microsoft team back in 2011, I think it is, right? When this project was, when was the first project here? You have the master. If you could take a look at this, you have over 382 commits. Holy fuck. Show me those that are. Can you show me this in a particular order? Oh my god. Can you show me is? Okay. You show me this 2005. Please do that. Do that for me, please. Clear? No. 2005, 2006. Right? Can you look at that? Can you tell me that? Come on, man. Okay. Holy moly. Jesus. Okay. April 12th, right? April 12th, 2011. Set up the new repository, right? So back in 2011, back in April 12th, 2011, actually close. That is springtime in the north. And here is now autumn on the south. All right. So Microsoft team back in 2012 developed a tool call script shard, okay, when they leverage the experience of developing apps in C#, so IntelliSense, that's right, so IntelliSense, code refactoring, and there is a couple other stuff here that he mentioned. Let me go back in time. And is this? Exactly. IntelliSense build. Okay. Code refact. Exact. But it's IntelliSense. Build time errors and code refactoring. Right. Natural language syntax for OOP construct. Or refactors. We can take that as refactors. Code refactoring is here. So they actually pour C# code like this. Working in JavaScript feel like working in the dark age. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of this. Most people, exactly. So Microsoft team back in April 12, 2011, developed a tool called Script Hash when they leverage the experience of developing apps in C# to build web apps, right? So tooling back then weren't that good as it is today. Okay. And despite the hate that some members in the community have around JavaScript, it is important to understand that this tool just extend the functionality of JavaScript for enterprise applications. Okay, a tool that extends the functionality of JavaScript for enterprise applications, right? So it is still and will be, I'm assuming, right? And it is still relevant to know or to understand how the spec, right? How JavaScript, particularly the ECMA script, the ECMA script 262 spec, all right, works. All right, I do think this is my own. Description about this, and I want to point that out here to this. I didn't know about this. That's quite interesting. Yes. All right. Finish this lesson, mark as complete. What about the next one? Okay. JavaScript versus Typescript in the build process.
Let's talk a bit about how TypeScript works in the build process. if you have a JavaScript only setup, you're going to have you over here, and you're going to be writing code in JavaScript files, right? So .js files, or
This is why you need to understand this JavaScript. You can hate it or love it. It is irrelevant. Understand how the things work, and then you can eliminate one problem in your life. That's all. Then you can have better problems to deal with. JavaScript is not one of them.
or .jsx files sometimes. And those are then going to be used by the browser and Node.js. So it's a very simple setup. You just write your code in JavaScript files, and it's then consumed by the browser or Node. Node is a runtime environment that can basically run JavaScript files on a server, on your desktop, on mobile applications. Node is extremely versatile, extremely widely used. But of course, your JavaScript files could be consumed by some other runtime as well, like Hermes, for instance, on React Native, or Bun, or Dino, or something. So you can think of these runtimes really as just representative of many other. But the two main ones, browser and Node.js. So again, very, very simple here. Just you writing JavaScript files with the browser and Node.js in mind. TypeScript is a lot more complicated. So let's start over on the left-hand side here. Start with you. You're writing your code in .ts files now, so a different file extension here. These TS files, two things happen to them. First of all, they're watched by TypeScript's IDE server. It has the TS server, which sits in your IDE and gives you in IDE warnings, which gives you direct feedback on what you're getting wrong, let's say, in your files, or giving you autocomplete, or letting you do things like renaming symbol, or all sorts of powerful things. So the IDE server creates a feedback loop where
I want to make a quick pause here. Renaming symbol is one of the things that I really love about refactoring. Oh my god, is the ability to have now change the name of a variable that hold a specific value, whether it's a primitive or an object, and that also can include these functions, okay? And that once you hit enter, it's going to refactor all of those instances across your applications, all of those names across your applications, so you don't have to worry about that saves you time, bro. Oh, all right, go on.
you write your code, it's watched by TypeScript that gives you feedback that helps you write better code. Then your TS files, they can't be run by the browser or Node.js themselves. So they actually need to be built by something. And this is then the TypeScript CLI. The TypeScript CLI is a command line interface that can let you turn your TypeScript files into JavaScript files. And then those JavaScript files get used by the browser and Node.js. And so this setup is the same as we saw before, except you're not authoring your JavaScript files yourself. You're actually writing your code in TypeScript files, which is giving you this beautiful virtuous feedback loop inside your IDE. Now, these are the two main differences then. You're essentially writing TypeScript files, which gives you this lovely feedback loop, which you just don't get if you're writing JavaScript. You often have to test your code inside the browser or inside Node.js, which can be slower, a little bit more painful to get used to. Whereas TypeScript gives you lovely feedback inside your IDE, but at the cost of a little bit of a stranger, slightly more convoluted build process.
There you got it. This is exactly what I do want to get here, right? No, I do want to get is both, right?
Let's talk a bit about
I definitely want to get is both of this. Again, this is a very simplified version of this. All right, and then you have now the Typescript process. All right. All right. And you have the Typescript process. Just gotta put it here. This is JavaScript versus Typescript in the build process. You'll see me soon. Me verás pronto, amigo. Me vas a ver pronto. Alright. JavaScript versus TypeScript in the build process. I should have made that. No, I should have exactly. This is a Kickstart TypeScript relationship with JavaScript. Okay. So TypeScript relationship with JavaScript. Right, you can put it here. Okay, you think you're funny. You think you're funny. It's okay. And you have JavaScript versus TypeScript in the build process. So it has this now server behind the scenes. Where it is? You have this as the JavaScript only, and then you have now a build process here, where it provides you a nice little feedback loop, because there is a server sit between your file and your ID called the TypeScript ID server. Cool. Private numbers. I don't receive call from private number. I don't hang up on private calls. Nope, not at all. Okay, this architecture is something that I'm not quite familiar with, or the workflow.
A little bit of a stranger, slightly more convoluted build process.
Say completed. All right, and there you got it.
Let's break down all of the tools you're going to need to work with TypeScript. So you will need, first of all, an IDE, an integrated developer environment. This is kind of like VS Code is a great example. VS Code is the one that I use. It's also distributed by Microsoft, and it has a really great integration with TypeScript. Of course, you can use any IDE, really, even things like NeoVim or whatever, but most of the examples I'm going to show are based in VS Code. So if you're not very confident in using an IDE, VS Code is the one you want to choose. VS Code helps you when you're writing TypeScript files. That is the feedback loop. It helps you, gives you better feedback, means that you can be more precise with the way that you're coding and code faster. Then we're going to need Node.js. Node.js helps you run the TypeScript CLI. The TypeScript CLI is actually written in TypeScript, so it actually needs Node.js to run it. And the TypeScript CLI will help turn your code from TypeScript to JavaScript, as well as giving you lovely warnings on your entire project too. And then finally, you're going to need some kind of execution environment, some kind of place to run your emitted JavaScript. So we're going to need Node.js again, so I'll show you how to install it in a second. Or you're going to need a web browser. Chrome is the one that I'm going to be using, and it's a great way because the Chrome dev tools are extremely powerful and they give you a really nice insight as to what's happening in your code. So basically these are the three things that you need. Just need an IDE like VS Code, you need Node.js in order to run the TypeScript CLI, and you need an execution environment to test where your code is running.
But again, okay, this is okay based on okay. for this course.
Let's break down all of the tools.
Okay, so for this course, you're gonna need is this tool here. Not only for this course, but also for the daily business operations. Yeah, the daily business ops. For daily business ops, there you got it, right? And here we are. All right. Pro essentials there and essential tools for Typescript development. Let me put it this here. So essential tools for Typescript development. Right? You got this, and there you got it. So of course you're gonna need an ID, this integrated development environment, and the execution environments. All right, the server where you can run this, and then the execution environment here. All right.
So you're going to need is running.
All right.
The first thing that you'll need to install is Node.js. And on here, on the Node.js site, which I will link below, you've got two buttons. You can either download the LTS, doesn't matter about the version number if you're seeing this in the future, the version number may have changed, but as long as you're on the LTS, should be fine. So we've got the LTS on the left-hand side and the current version on the right-hand side. You might think, oh yeah, give me the latest features, but no, you actually want the LTS. This is long-term support. This is the version of Node that they've decided is super stable and they're going to recommend you use in production. The current one tends to have the latest sort of experimental features, whereas the LTS is the one that this course supports and the one I recommend you use in production too. So you click this button, that will initiate a download, then you can go through the installation instructions. To check that you've got it right, you can go into any terminal, such as the one inside VS Code, and you can say node-v. Nice, node-v. That will spit out a version if you've got it installed. If you haven't managed to get it installed, if you, for instance, accidentally misspell it or something, then it will do something like node command not found here. So once you have Node, you're ready to go. Next up, we need to add VS Code as well. You can go onto the VS Code website, you can download Visual Studio Code, walk through the installation instructions, and that will just give you an application that you can open in order to run VS Code. From there, you can download the repo using Git, which I will assume that you know how to do. And once you've done that, you can then open this up and you'll have access to all of the exercises.
Where is the repo, bro? Yeah, where is the repo, bro? Where is the repo, bro? Hey. Wait for it. Wait. Okay. Set up node in VS Code. Actually, it's pretty much installing that, right? So setting up or set up Node.js and VS Code, right? So essentially go on and install them. But where it is, bro, is like the hell is.
The first thing that you'll need to add, you can then open this up and you'll have access to all of the exercises.
Yeah, but where? You know? I don't have access to that, but I'm assuming you're gonna provide me to this. Oh, installing PNP for package management. This installing PNPN for package manager. Yeah, this is according to TouchRadar from ThoughtWorks, a Chicago-based IT company, where they show is the technologies, the tools, the practice, and another portion that I don't remember right now, uh, where they actually test those stuff, uh, whether it is a particularly practice, a language, a language or frameworks, or some techniques, uh, and they now see if they can become now part of the ecosystem or not, right? That is a very, very, very interesting website. I'm going to leave the link down below, ThoughtWorks, so you can actually take a look at that, right? And there you go.
The final thing we're going to install is PNPM. Now this is not necessarily needed for all TypeScript repositories, but it is needed for this one, for my one here. Now what this is an alternative to something called NPM. So NPM, basically in every sort of JavaScript repository you will have run across this before, there is probably going to be a package.json. This represents essentially all of the packages that we need to install in order to run this code. So inside here, I have a special CLI for the total TypeScript repo, some helpers as well, some various things like crossfetch and nodemon, blah, 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 and lots of things that I've decided should be in here. There's also a bunch of scripts inside here as well, like each individual ones for running each individual exercise, and also a bunch of other dependencies too. So what I can do here is I can run npm install, which is a CLI. So I could say, I'm not going to run this, but I could say npm install, and this would get all of these packages and basically put them into node modules here. And node modules, as you can see, is a big old folder with a bunch of different stuff in there. And all of these node modules are then used, because they all contain things like actual TypeScript in there. So here we go, some TypeScript, some JavaScript in there. And those then get used by my actual source code, which lives inside SRC. Now this is perfectly fine. We could use npm for this, but I've decided to use pnpm instead. pnpm is an alternative that basically runs a little bit faster and also means that you end up with less disk space actually used on your setup. Because if you think about it, with npm, you would actually end up with lots of duplicated stuff in your node modules if you had lots of repositories on your computer with basically the same contents. Let's say they all installed the same version of TanStack React Query. Well, that's a lot of duplicated code. What PNPM does is it actually hard links it up to a root in your system, so there's only one copy on your system, and then it automatically sort of fills in all the node modules from that one copy. This means it runs faster, and it means it's kinder on your disk space. And so because a lot of these exercises have very similar contents in terms of node modules, I've chosen to use PNPM, even though it's a little bit more setup for you. I hope you don't mind. But you can install it on PNPM's website.
I hope you don't mind. So get the funk, get the French toast if you don't like it. But in any case, right? I know he's trying to treat their audience in a very polite way, but French toast you if you don't follow this, right? All right, come on.
Website, and it should just work. You should be able to get access to PNPM. You will know if it's working if you can say PNPM-V and you get a version spat out at you. If you're having trouble with this, go to my Discord and people will be able to help you get set up. But PNPM, I do tend to recommend it over NPM, just if you're working on a production monorepo, because it's a little bit faster and it just helps make the developer feedback loop a little bit quicker too. But it's absolutely critical for this repo too.
Okay, but again, my friend, where is the repo, bro? Where is the repo, my friend? You know what I mean? Where in the French toast is the repo? This is the tips article, bro. What the French toast? Um, mm-hmm. Where in the French toast is the repo, bro? Workshop detail. Oh, there you go. Okay. All right. Ah, makes a lot of sense. Okay, renovate bot. And then you got it. All right. Okay, cool. Mm-hmm. All right. So, I think that that'll be all for today. Video. Take care. Bye bye.